want our students to become the globally acknowledged scientists, we need to give them reasons, and I'm sure they will be always motivated to work here.
A dream classroom.
A dream classroom is a classroom where a student, first of all,
Bring those stories forward of people who rose quietly, who shaped their worlds with courage, compassion, and conviction. Beyond the shout, only on Think Media Network and New Voice from Kashmir for the stories that shape tomorrow. Dream classroom.
a dream classroom is a classroom where a student, first of all,
Ah.
feels absolutely free to ask anything under the sky. No hesitations.
No
Asking
barriers.
questions first. Second, he has that ambience in the classroom where he feels that I can probably discuss my idea with my teacher and my fellow beings for that matter, and convert my idea into something that he wants. Nowadays, this smart classroom is a buzzword. You have all smart gadgets in the classrooms. I have a slightly different take on it. If you look at the colleges and the universities or other schools also, not many gadgets, and many classrooms are really smart classrooms in that context. You have those LCD projectors, you have the internet connectivity, you have the interactive boards. Fine enough, but look at the quality of students we are producing. It doesn't match at all. That means we are lacking somewhere else. And where we are lacking is, you know, promoting that basically different model of learning by tinkering with things, by asking questions. You see, you get different wastes materials and put them on the table in a different way and tell students, just think your way, what value added products, for example, you can make out of these wastes, and you see what they will come up with. I'm pretty sure that they will come up with very novel things and novel ideas through which you can convert this waste into wealth. So we train them well, we encourage them to ask questions, but at the same time we expose them to the best possible mentors, best possible trainings, you know uh, that would sort of facilitate them getting their ideas converted.
Manzoor, see, when we innovate, when we discover, when we invent, we do a lot of science activities around the world, and naturally, there is how we endanger our Mother Earth also.
I work on invasive species, as I told you in the beginning. These invasive species are those species that are existing, चाहे हमारी लेक्स हैं, फॉरेस्ट्स हैं, रोड साइड्स हैं, they grow of their own, है ना? And that's a major threat. Invasive species to the global biodiversity are considered as the second largest threat after the habitat fragmentation. कि इन्वेसिव स्पीशीज को हम कैसे वैल्यू एडेड प्रोडक्ट्स में कन्वर्ट करेंगे? फ्रेगमाइटिस ऑस्ट्रेलिस फॉर एग्जांपल एक हमारा बहुत इन्वेसिव स्पीशीज है. हमने इसको लाया और इसको प्रोसेस किया एंड वी कन्वर्टेड इट इनटू द पेपर. ठीक है. Likewise, you can convert basically some species into dyes, into different kinds of drugs, into different kinds of waxes for that matter. इससे क्या होता है कि this is a zero investment biomass. You go, you have not to invest anything, you get it, you convert it into product. आपका product चला, so you can earn your livelihoods. You manage the environment. You call it as utilization based management. So we do not harm them. We manage the environment and then get the basically livelihoods done. So we have to understand that environment is paramount, because post COVID, a concept that emerged across the globe is the concept of One Health. And One Health is that you cannot ensure good human health, unless you do not ensure good environmental health and good animal health, right? So there are One Health institutions that are coming across globally. So my point is that we have to kind of make sure that while doing science, we do not somehow fiddle with the environment to the extent that it boomerangs and sort of feeds back negatively.
So we have to create a balance.
Yes, that's very important.
हम उन कहानियों से वाबस्ता हैं जो हम अपनी नानी दादी की गोद में सुना करते थे.
Our way of living, our heritage.
हर कौम दी पहचान होंदा उसदा कल्चर. कल्चर की पहचान होती है उसकी जबान।
जो हानियों की खुशबू में और सहन की खामोशी में बसती थी।
Our culture, our languages, and our being.
अस सो दर मजरावन कोशिश करान यथ मज सो हवाई यथ सान सकाफत यथ सान कल्चर खुशबू आस।
उन्हीं लम्हों का हवाला है थिंक न्यू मीडिया नेटवर्क।
जड़े अखान जड़े लोग गीत असी भुल गए हैं उन्होंने याद कराने वास्ते आ रहे हैं तुझे सामने।
This is not a platform for noise, but a space for dignified conversation.
माजी का एहतराम, मुस्तकबिल की तलाश।
Do you think our colleges, our curriculum as such, or education system as such is fully equipped to the extent that we can produce future scientists?
If you look at the world, this question from a more global perspective, why science has prospered at some places and not at the others? For example, हम US की ही बात करते हैं. Somehow what they did at one point in time is they created conducive lab spaces and the most sophisticated environment across the globe. जो भी best minds say, they ended up there and they contributed to their economy first and led them to their, if at all, to their own countries. So paramount is that we need to create those spaces where scientific temperament, flourishes, and a student does not feel under any compulsion to leave this place for pursuing a scientific discourse elsewhere better. In that context, I believe, there's a huge potential of doing work in that direction. We need to create, first of all, as I said, the ideal spaces in the institutions. If we want our students to become the globally acknowledged scientists, we need to give them reasons that you have the best possible ambience opportunities here than going elsewhere. And I'm sure they will be always motivated to work here. जो भी हमारे बहुत ही bright लोग बाहर गए, ultimately जब आप बाहर जाते हैं तो you always have that in the heart of hearts this feeling कि भाई I would like to go back and contribute to my. लेकिन जब यहाँ वापस आते हैं, they do not find ambience or the environment conducive to their, जो training उनकी होती है, तो उनकी जो training ही ज़ाया हो जाती है. So we need to think about how can we now go from brain drain to the brain gain and create ideal, system in the institutions where these students and these budding scientists. And उसी के context में आपको एक बताऊँ, there was something that Tim Hunt actually told me. Not me, that he gave a talk and he told something very interesting. कहा कि he was given this Nobel Prize for having discovered this cycline. It's a very important protein in this, the science cycle. कहा कि when I did it in my lab, I discussed it with my supervisor. कहा कि he didn't somehow like it, or he said that probably you are mistaken. He said, like, I was very much, convinced कि भाई ये ठीक है. There is something in this. He tried it again, went to his supervisor. He said that he was not moved. Probably he didn't understand the merit of it. कहा कि I thought, what should I do? Should I accept my failure? He said that what I did was कि मैं एक और लैब में दूर गया किसी और साइंटिस्ट के पास और उसकी लैब में ये रिपीट किया और जब मैंने उसको दिखाया उसने कहा oh this is something new. And he says that if I would not have gone to that lab, probably I would not have won the Nobel Prize. So my point is, one, science for example, ये जो failures का है ना concept, मतलब हम यहाँ पे बच्चों को बहुत मतलब आप फेल क्यों हो गए आपने मतलब साइंस में जो फेलियर्स होते हैं दैट्स द रियल नॉलेज.
It's a foundation.
Because it's a lot of information that it doesn't work this way, it doesn't work this way, then only you figure out that it works this way. So we have to tell our students that failures are part of the success stories that you ultimately come up with.
Mission कहीं वाला तो इसी वना शाना सब में वाणी क्या ना mission कहीं वाला مےٚ چھُ پتہ مےٚ چھُ سورُے پاے تِکیازِ ییٚلہِ تہِ بہٕ کانٛہہ کتھ چھُس یژھان کرٕنۍ اڑوانی چھُ یِوان جواب اہن سا مےٚ چھِ پاے تَوے چھُس ونان مےٚ چھُنہٕ کِہیٖنۍ وَنُن.
When we talk about people with science backgrounds, usually say they lack that kind of. Normally, I should not generalize. Normally, they lack that aesthetics and understanding of humanities subjects, and then they have to take decisions in the context of lacking that aesthetics or understanding of the humanities. How do you think this is detrimental?
Again, I will explain it from a botanist perspective.
Okay.
We understand plants, we work on plants from very different, very scientific, perspectives. Of course, is that the science of plants, what you call as.
Mhm.
But if you look at these plants, what is art in them? You know, there is a special issue of American Journal of Botany recently published that actually talks about, the art of botanical sciences. You have so many different forms of art existent in the architecture of the plants. How you basically bring that botanical art into your, say, for example, embroidery, and into your depiction of your thoughts as an artist, is something basically, this aesthetics. That's why I believe we need to kind of encourage the marriage between disciplines. We That's why you will see, for example, in IITs you have the school of social sciences, school of literature, because even if you are producing these engineers or these technocrats, what you call as, but they have some sense of what this humanities is all about. That point is, we as human beings are a complex of many facets, many dimensions. We cannot only go in just one dimension ignoring the other dimensions. For example, spiritual dimension is one, aesthetic dimension, as you talked about, is the other, right? The scientific being is the other, right? So this overall being is to be satisfied, and for that matter, I believe that exposure of a student to all these disciplines at the appropriate stages is something very important. And how it happens actually is, you know we don't have this culture of, जनरली आपने बच्चे को लिया, वही फॉर एग्जांपल तो शुहस या लिटरेचर से करा, बहुत सारी लिटरेरी मेजर फिगर्स आपके साथ मिलते रहते हैं. कभी यार बैठिए और अपने छोटे बच्चों को लाइए और जस्ट लेट देम हियर व्हाट यू आर डिस्कसिंग, encourage them sometimes to poke into the discussions. I mean, those who are from the science background, and see in due course of time how this can change the landscape of science, literature, and the social science that we are doing together.
Right. So you mean that for a person associated with science, it is very important to know about aesthetics, to know a little at least about art, about aesthetics, about literature. Is it true vice versa also? Should a person from humanities, arts, literature know about sciences also? Is it true
I
vice?
think, I mean, yeah, of course, the basics of it is very important. मतलब मैं आपको बता दूं एक छोटी सी एग्जांपल, डल लेक की हम यहाँ से मिसाल देता हूँ आपको. डल लेक को अगर हम मान लीजिए इसमें प्रॉब्लम्स है, इसको संभालना है, भाई आप किसके लिए इसको संभालते हो? Dull is an ecosystem, natural ecosystem that works on the ecological principles, scientific principles of ecology for that matter. So we need to understand it as an ecosystem and how an ecosystem is structured, it functions, and we need to kind of take those into management. But at the same time, Dull has a place in our culture, right? In the folklore, or for that matter in the in our cultural context, कितने ही शायरी आप देखोगे जिनमें डल का जिक्र है, अलेविस का सेव डल, ठीक क्या कितना ही है. There is a cultural context to it. Likewise, for example, there is a governance context to it. What is the governance model? Basically, we should have for the ideal management of these systems. And there is basically, a water quality model. वाटरशेड कैसे काम करता है. So ये हमारा basically कहने का मतलब ये है कि you cannot expect, for example, me as a botanist to know philosophy or literature the way a person who is from the literature itself know,
Of course.
but at least have the sense of that, and to use that context to better contextualize my scientific discourse is something very important. How it comes, I will tell you. Unfortunately, the reading culture हमारे यहाँ पे रहा नहीं. साइंस वाले जो लोग आप देखेंगे दुनिया में करते हैं बड़ा साइंस, on weekends, on during their travel, during their leisure, you will see them always reading novels, reading, for example, history books. मेरे ख्याल से जितना साइंस करना ज़रूरी है उतना साइंस, हिस्ट्री ऑफ साइंस को समझना भी ज़रूरी है, बिकॉज दैट ड्राइव्स यू टू मेनी dimensions of this science. So you have to be, of course, the master of your subject. Of course, but you have not to kind of be opaque to or completely blind to the rest of the disciplines, because you bring, the different taste to your discipline when you look at it from the other disciplines. यही मजा है कि जब as a botanist I talk to you as a, for example, person from literature, it's a very different learning, and vice versa this happens. So this dialogue of wisdom, as I talked about earlier, this dialogue of wisdom needs to be promoted.
Thank you for joining me on Beyond the Shelf. I hope today's conversation sparked something new, a question, a reflection, or maybe even a new direction. Each week we meet someone who is quietly changing the world in their own way. And next week I'll be back with another inspiring guest. Until then, keep looking beyond the surface, beyond the ordinary, and beyond the shelf.